So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here today with Omar Shihab, who's the founder and MD of award-winning modern European restaurant Boca. Sorry, I just drank too much coffee. Omar, it's lovely to see you. How are things your end?
Hi, Prao. Very good. Excellent. Great start to the year. We're really excited about things that are coming up, things that we've got planned, a lot of evolution in the way that we're doing business and collaborations. So yeah, really exciting times.
Ah, fantastic. So just as a brief introduction, guys, so I'm Mary Pratt, the founder of Caviar Spoon.
And I'm Anna Royal Smith, Head of Research and Brand Collaborations.
So the one thing we know about Boca is that since 2017, Omar and Boca have been the leading force in collaborations as far as we're concerned. They've been rethinking dining experience and collaborations across all borders and industries. So this is a really informative meeting with Omar about why he's doing it, what's been going on, and how hospitality can benefit from the art of collaborations. So I guess, Omar, the first thing is, the big question is why? Why focus on this? Why did you start doing this back in 2017? So give us a bit more insight from your take.
I think 2017 was the year that the way that we want to run these collaborations came out of age, because we were experimenting with things since year one. So we opened in late 2014. And as early as, I think, winter of 2015, we started opening our doors. Actually, let me trace back a little bit. And I think it starts with the origin story of Boca. You see, when we were given the space here in DIFC, what we wanted to build really is a homegrown concept, something that could rival any important import of a concept, be it from any big place in the world. Because we believe that we have enough creative and capable people that could do that. We also wanted, as part of that, we wanted to talk about the farmers, purveyors, fishermen, and suppliers that we work with, because we believe on an overall level, it might seem that that this is a barren land. There's really nothing grows here. But listen, we've got over 1,400 kilometers of coastline. There's an abundance of fish and seafood that comes from this part of the world. In the last few years, there's been a myriad of farms, whether it's traditional, organic, hydroponic, farming and producing brilliant stuff. So we went on a mission to represent that and talk about that. And if you want to actually trace back to what could have been the first collaboration that we ever had, was ingrained in the concept. So when we were given the space in DIFC, DIFC was, and still to a large extent, an important stop on the art trail of Dubai. So there are important areas that you go to see art, to get into galleries, starting with Medina Jumeirah, Sirkal Avenue, Bastakia, and obviously DIFC. So that is something that we understood from the beginning, and that's why our brief to our designer was that we want to dedicate our walls, and if you've been to Boca, part of our ceiling, to the art. So I appreciate art, but I'm not a curator. So we hired a gallery, and a shout out to Fana Porte and the workshop gallery run by Ghada Kunash. Someone who does not have a representation here in DIFC. We offered her our walls with a certain line of artists that we wanted to represent, but we gave her full reins to manage this. And now the artwork is changed almost every season. Everyone is heavily involved. Ghada comes in and briefs us on the new art and the new artist, and we sell it. So that was completely the perfect quid pro quo. We provided her the space, she managed the artist, and it added so much life and value to the restaurant. It's a living space. So it really started with that, and I think it's really important for anyone who's trying to get into this space, into collaborating or opening their doors to a sponsor, a supplier, a partner, any brand, it needs to start with you. What do you represent? What do you stand for?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I mean, it's collaborations right under everyone's nose. And I think if the brands align with your values, then it's a win-win. So that's fantastic. I mean, there's one thing with a lady which sent a message through early, which Anna's going to ask in a minute. But so
yeah, I'll go into it. So I know you've been collaborating since 2017, but how do you feel, if there's anything, how the pandemic has adjusted your thoughts around the hospitality industry and the power of actually collaborating?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I think, immediately when we were allowed to trade, when we were allowed to come back after lockdown, there was this necessity, there was this need to come together as an industry, whether it be it locally or globally. There was that sentiment, and there was that general openness by everyone to invite people in. So we saw an increase in the number of guest shifts. We participated in a lot of that. We went to other kitchens. We've hosted a lot of our friends over as well from Dubai and abroad. So definitely, the pandemic has definitely accelerated the need to look beyond. I think people realize that you cannot exist in a vacuum. I think people realize that the sums are definitely much bigger than the parts, and the value that you get out of it is absolutely incredible. So definitely, the pandemic has definitely accelerated that.
Yeah, and I think the one thing which has changed is I know we spoke about this before, but there's hospitality and chefs, and I do have to say chefs, back in the day, very dubious about collaborations, very dubious about sharing recipes, very dubious about competitors working together. But do what's your take around that? Because I think nowadays there's no real competition. You create more issues if you don't open up the doors and meet with local brands or come up with concepts together.
Very true. I think you're absolutely right. For a long time, it's been chefs and restaurants and kitchens holding on to their secret recipes, their secret ingredients, exclusive product that comes to only that particular place. And obviously, to a large extent, there is a bit of that, but I think it's changed. I think it's no longer sits with one element in the restaurant. Secret, recipes are shared in this day and age with social media, with us talking more. I think this thing definitely is not relevant anymore. I think the secret recipe that any outlet has is the combination of that experience that a guest has. So obviously your space, your location, the hospitality that you provide, the type of obviously cuisine, the food, it's everything coming together rather than being one thing. What we have realized from our perspective is that we definitely we've always been open. We've always been aware of the fact that we cannot exist in a vacuum. We are as good as our suppliers, as our product. And they've got stories to tell. And that adds so much value to the experience that we want to provide to our guests. That's really the place that we're coming from.
Yeah.
Is that, our story is really the story of the baby oyster. Our story is the story of Marianne's fresh produce and Pure Harvest tomatoes and the fabulous winemakers, Torres wines. So that's really what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Anna just went off the printer. That's why she went off to get some questions. Because someone had emailed a long question, but they were talking about the whole thing around this kind of concept around boundaryless thinking. And it's someone who actually attended. Well, I get you to read off, but it's someone who attended one of the collaborations, and it is with Altos. So it's
right.
Mexican with Spanish, and I was looking at the notes which Anna just brought back, but that's kind of, you know, most hospitality would stick to what they know. So if they're a certain industry, they stick with a certain industry. But go through that collaboration in detail, because we were there as well. And the detail you guys put into it, and the ability where everyone was on the same page, we don't actually see that often.
It was refreshing as well, because it was Mexican coming in, you know, and they used Boca. It was just, yeah, to explain how it all came about.
If anyone had told me that I'll be hosting a Dia de los Muertos party in Boca, I would say just get out. It doesn't make sense, right? But I tell you, it was a conversation that we had with a brand that wanted to launch here in Dubai. It was the guys behind Altos Tequila that's been around for quite some time. They were very keen. They were obviously extremely interested in our direction. So we share the same ethos around conservation, around reducing waste. I think the entire waste produce from the distillery adds up to a very small truck once a week or something like that. So they've got that ingrained into their brand identity, and the same goes with us. So that's really where it started. And we picked a restaurant called Nikos from Mexico City, because that obviously stands for that brand, for that cuisine. But they also stand for sourcing locally, for championing local produce in Mexico. So they come from the same background. Chef Gerardo Lugo won the Icon Award at the 50 Best Restaurants. His restaurant is number, I think, 32 on Latin America's 50 Best list. And then we connected the dots to an incredible gentleman called Odd Strabakken, and he is the chief mixologist at a bar called Himcook in Oslo, Norway. So Himcook won the Sustainable Bar of the Year award at the 2018 50 Best Bars. So this is a place where 80% of the produce, including their spirits, are distilled on site. Everything is done through foraging, through homemade recipes. We connected the dots, and we obviously sent a message to these guys. The team and I worked on this quite effortlessly, and they were on board. And it was incredible to see. Obviously, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of conference calls to make sure that everyone is aligned to the same page. And then when we obviously in the lead up to the event, it was also important that everything that we did to host guests was in line with the ethos. So it was extremely important that whatever decoration that we would have put up is not a single-use plastic item or flimsy decoration. Everything had to be organic, nothing that was tacky. So that was really important for the success of the event. So if the energy really flowed, because we were all signed up to that, we were committed to one cause. And I think that's really important to set really early in a collaboration phase, is to agree on the overall idea of all of this. Why are we doing this? What do we stand for? And everything else follows. It's very easy to egos get into play here. But it's extremely important to always say that the collaboration comes first. Yes, it's a temporary, it's a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day event, but we're gonna make it the best one that we could, and everyone pulls in their weight at the table. So yeah, it was incredible, but it wasn't the craziest. It wasn't the strangest of collaborations.
No.
That was fun. But it's definitely up there.
To be told, but that actually moves really nicely on to what I wanted to ask you next. It's basically, what would your top 3 non-compromise due diligence rules be? Because lots of brands have tried to do collaborations and many have actually got burnt. So what would you recommend for them to look out for? Like, I know you've said your line alignment and the fundamentals. So what was your 3 that you wouldn't compromise with?
I think, first of all, doing the right research. So researching the right partners, making sure that they are aligned to your message or what your brand stands for. In our case, obviously, the restaurant stands for conservation and sustainability and local sourcing. So it's extremely important. It's extremely important to find that one reason, that raison d'être, to that commitment, and that's what you're subscribed to. You're not subscribed necessarily to that other brand. So you are both, or the three of you, or no matter what number it is, you're all subscribed to that one commitment, that one reason. And the angle doesn't necessarily have to be the obvious. It could be a story that is perhaps makes part of that brand, but you want to focus on that angle. That also allows you to perhaps see yourself and the public or your customers or your guests to see you in a different light that you never thought could be possible before. So that was, I would think, the important part.
Broaden the mind for it.
And the other thing I think and you're going to answer this very simply, is how important is it for CEOs and C-suite to really be at the forefront of collaborative marketing? Because what we've seen is a lot of marketing teams who may want to do something and they get pushed back because it doesn't align with the brand guidelines, which it's the wrong type of guidelines. They're saying, look, you know, Mexican restaurant, Mexican chef, we can't do anything else. So how important do you think it is for people of your level to get involved in these types of partnerships and be at the forefront of this type of marketing?
You got to approach this with an open mind. You also want to approach this not necessarily knowing the entire outcome, not necessarily knowing at the very beginning how things are going to really play out down to the detail. We live in uncertain times. I think what we know in terms of doing business, no matter what your industry is in, I think you got to start unlearning that, and that's what we've realized. We might have not had the chance to pause, I think, at the end of that first year coming out of lockdown to really assess, because we were running, but it felt natural. It felt natural that we really need to stay open every day on a day-to-day basis, and it's like almost a book that is not completely finished. You're at chapter 2. And you realize that you need to change direction. So it's something that is an evolution. So you got to allow for mistakes. You got to allow for that natural progression, that organic process to come through. And I think if you build the right framework, at least, if you're starting with the correct angle, or at least what is correct to you, what you see is a fit or an angle that you share with that other brand, I think you'll only be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of goes on to, I think, another question about the measurables. So the ROI of collaborations. Now, we all have our opinions. A lot of hospitality brands we have interviewed who said the first ROI has got to be financial. They've got to make money from this.
Right.
I don't personally agree. I think obviously it's leading to a commercial success story, but how do you, or how have you measured return on investment since Boca have been doing collaborations? What key points do you look at? What metrics do you look at? Because I think this is going to be a great use to other hospitality brands listening in at the moment.
Yeah, that's really important, and I ask this question to myself and my team the whole time. I think it really starts with you wanting to really tell that story. For us, that's what's really important. There are a lot of things that we think about and messages that we want to get across. So that's obviously one of the elements that is that has us in the beginning wanting to do these collaborations. So it enriches your customer experience. I think that is one extremely important factor that is hard to measure. But if you look at it from a touch point perspective that you want to have with your guests, even if it's on a limited in a limited time period, on a very short time period, if you're able to invite your guests into your house or have your customers over, where they will have your experience, in our case, the Boca experience, but add to that, let's say, a visiting chef, where he or she will come and talk to you and explain to you and bring you an experience from their own house. And then you have a mixologist that is also talking to you about, the beverage, or you have a winemaker that is talking to you about, what is the process that has led to that great product. And then you have perhaps a brand ambassador that also has that story. I think that's extremely, that's obviously hard to measure, but it gives the guest such an incredible experience to your guests. It also is, it's an extension of your communication and your marketing program as well. So if you take that as part of your expense, because collaborations are expensive, you don't want to end up losing money, but if you're able to manage that cost through what I was talking about before, through everyone pulling in their weight, every collaborator in that program or in that commitment or in that event pulling in their weight, I think you're able to minimize that. Post collaboration, I think, is really important for the follow-up to happen, to gauge the interaction that you've had, whether during the course of the event, face-to-face, online, what you've got in terms of actual PR and marketing coverage. I think really it goes a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the way we see it.
Yeah, I mean, I know from experiences that you've done is the one thing I loved in terms of that alignment of brands is that small card which everyone had with everyone's social tags on. So, when you're from a media perspective, you've got everyone there. And also, the kind of post-marketing gifts you guys did. And, when you're doing these experiences, it's Boca telling another story, so that gives PR. So it's always storytelling.
And the network, the network is really important because you're all of a sudden, sharing that network with the other person. So your message is spreading beyond what you're usually used to, the circle of, perhaps in a lot of cases, especially in sometimes we think that, we've got a strong following on social media, but we might be talking into echo chambers here. So it's really that is something perhaps that we're yet to see, and maybe it'd be interesting to measure is the cross networks and the circles that we're all of a sudden opening ourselves to is extremely crucial here. Extremely crucial.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of that at the moment, actually, with like index and kind of looking at that audience and how it's all connected in one way or another. So. But it goes back to also what you were saying about alignment of values as opposed to alignment of a brand. It's this sustainability.
Right.
It's not a like-for-like chef of a restaurant, a Spanish restaurant, Spanish chef. So it's really, what you're doing is like very forward thinking. It's always been forward thinking. And that goes on. We've got another couple of questions before we finish, because I could talk to you forever, as you know. Tell us about what Boca's got coming up, if you can divulge.
Yeah, very, very, like I said, I'm really excited about this year. We want to take our collaborations to the next level. We want to look more inwards, for sure. We've done a lot of events and collaborations with our colleagues and friends and with other restaurants. I think it's extremely important to continue to showcase the purveyors, the producers, the farmers. So we still can't get enough of the oyster story that we've got here in our own backyard. So I think we can announce it. I think so. We're taking over the oyster farm. We want to go there for a day, take over the farm, cook a small casual lunch, get everyone on the boat with Remy of Dibabe, and show them the lantern of oysters, the entire process, and come back and host a lunch there on the farm. We've got our partners Gin Mario on board as well, so it's going to be a little takeover. We share the ethos of connecting to the sea, to fine dining, to gastronomy. I think it's a beautiful three-way collaboration. We want to end up with also a little bit of a conservation effort. So we've been collecting oyster shells for quite some time. The farm collects a lot of the used shells, and we want to work with Azraq and the government of Fujairah perhaps to help us put back these shells to build new reefs. So that's going to be that's something we're hoping to get out of. Immediately the next day, we want to come back to Boca and do a takeover here. So we're going to turn the gastrobar into an oyster shucking station. That's something we're really excited about. And then there's an announcement coming in from Diba Bay as well. I think there is a small outpost, a shack, an oyster shack that's meant to open on the beach, a brand new one. So we might do a small takeover there. We're also, so that's one really cool collaboration we're looking forward to. Our carbon, so last year we went through an extremely excruciating exercise of calculating our carbon footprint data. And the numbers, I just received the numbers this last Friday. Our total carbon emissions of Boca down to the detail. And this includes obviously not just the food that we purchase and prepare, but everything that takes us to prepare that. Having staff commute every day through whatever mode of transportation that they have, the electricity that is consumed, the amount of gas that is burned, et cetera, et cetera. So we're able now to put a number, a total carbon emission to the average meal of a customer here in Boca. And along with our friends at Torres, we're hoping to create one of the lowest carbon footprint of a paired menu. So a paired menu, 3-course menu, paired with Torres Fabulous Produce at probably a carbon emission that is equivalent to a home-cooked meal. So more on that later.
That's amazing. It's going down to the purpose and the meaning. Because the other thing, and I said we may go off here, talk about the story with Moet Champagne.
Oh yeah.
That was really cool as well. So they've asked us to host a dinner with their brand ambassador in the lead up to World Champagne Day. And they selected us purely for our effort around sustainability. They wanted to host this lavish, exquisite dinner, but with a conscience. And that's when we came in and said, we know roughly what it would take in terms of carbon emissions. So let us do the calculation. And we went back to our partners, our carbon management consultancy, Element 6. We gave them the numbers, we gave them the menu that we were producing, we gave them the amount of champagne we were pouring, the total number of guests, our estimate of where the guests are driving from. We had the brand ambassador flying from Paris. We had live music that evening. So we put a number to that dinner, and Moish Not Happily offset that entire dinner with a tree planting project in Kenya. So and that is really what we want to do. We don't want to bore our guests with the nitty-gritty details. Sustainability is a dry subject, can be a really dry subject. And the calculations are quite tricky. We don't want them to necessarily have the headache of thinking about that.
Yeah.
We've done the work. We've been doing the work around waste reduction. We've been doing our work around reducing the distance between us and our suppliers. So we're doing all the work. All you have to do is come in, and this is where we must not forget that we're in the hospitality business. We're almost in the entertainment business. People are coming out, parting their way with their hard-earned money to have a good time, have a great meal, without necessarily having to think about all of that. Because we've done the work, we've done the thinking for them. Moe has done the offsetting for them, so they can enjoy that evening guilt-free.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I think Anna's got the final question.
Well, we are running out of time. I wanted to actually find out what your wackiest collaboration was, but we're going to have to leave that for another time, Omar. But what would your final tip be to offer to the hospitality leaders around the world?
I think it's really important to keep an open mind, open your doors. It's really important to look beyond the obvious. Like I said, our collaborations transcend beyond the cuisine that we serve. So there are obviously a lot of shared angles. for us, it's a global direction that we're following, and I'm sure most brands and most concepts have something that they stand behind. Look inward as well. I think it's important for us to look inwards into our community, our city, our country, what people are doing. Smart entrepreneurs, upcoming businesses, they need a platform, and you can be that platform. And at the end of the day, allow for mistakes, allow for curiosity, allow for you to get on board with these kind of events and collaborations without necessarily having to know the full outcome, and have fun, I guess.
Yeah,
You have to have fun. That's where the meaning comes into.
What is the point? Otherwise, what's the point?
Omar, thank you so much.
you,
This has just been the most incredible conversation, because we like to keep it as a conversation. We really do, you're one of our dearest buddies in the Middle East for doing what you do. It comes from the heart, and I think that just comes out with all of these collaborations you follow through. So thanks to everyone else for joining. So we're going to video this or record it, and then we're going to post it out with some key tips. Omar, I would love to have you back again very soon. And
of course, my pleasure.
Probably next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.